Hello, thanks for tuning in and welcome to the August edition of the Kushmerek Connection. Thank you as always to the FATV studios and FATV and all of their staff for hosting us here once again. And joining me this month, our first guest today is Heather Lemieux, no stranger to the town of Lunenburg and its residents, town manager since 2016. Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, welcome.
So I began in Lunenburg in 2017. I was appointed in 2016, so I've been there since January 2017. So it's going into my 7th year. And prior to that, I was in Barre. I was their town administrator. I began in Barre around 2017 as the assistant to the town administrator. So I was in that position for a period of time. I worked for the finance committee as well. I was their acting town administrator for a period of time when they were without a town administrator, and then I became the town administrator in 2012.
Oh, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. And before that, you were with the Secretary of State's office?
I was there for a period of time. I worked both in the Boston office and the Springfield office. The Boston office, I worked in the Human Resource Department, and Springfield's, you're exposed to every asset of the Secretary of State's office. So
that's
all
amazing.
good experience.
I was just going to say, really, from working in, in central office of state government and a constitutional office to working in a rural community and now a rural and suburban community, you really it's going to span the spectrum. Talk a little bit about how those first couple of experiences really prepared you for the role that you're in now.
The Secretary of State's office, you're exposed to public records, open meeting law, all the different aspects of what that office entails. So that was great experience from the state level too, to see how the state interacts with municipalities. I really prefer working in a local municipality. I think there's more grounds approach and have more positive impact on the community really directly. And so my experience in Barre, great experience. I worked with great people there, and we had great representatives as well, with former Senator Brewer, former Senator Ann Goby. So we had some good partnerships with the state there. We did a lot of great projects. Some infrastructure projects are the Town Common project was restructured there, a public safety building. So that all, steps in my career.
Absolutely.
To where I am today. And it's a different form of government, Barre. A town administrator role is slightly different than a town manager role. You have a 3-member board of selectmen in Barre with a more decentralized form of government with a town administrator. They have more of the direct responsibility to the select board versus a town manager position where there's a town charter and all the roles and responsibilities are laid out in the town charter, which is done through a special act, as you know, through the state legislature and signed off by the governor in the end, as far as through home rule petition.
Well, it's and I'm sure you've seen in both roles, though, and you mentioned just how close you are to things on the ground and how close you are to the ability to affect the lives of everyday residents and businesses, right? And I think never is that more true than in town government.
Yes.
Like you're never closer to democracy and never closer to the people you serve than in those roles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really why I got into this profession. I mean, at a young age, I was interested in government. My mom used to bring me to town meetings, so I had that, experience as a child, and really got me interested in government at a young age. I went on to get my degree in political science, minor in public administration, and then went on to get my master's in public policy. And I really always had a strong interest in how can I help people and affect change at the ground level.
Well, and that's exactly what you've been doing for so much of your career, and certainly it's been so exciting for me, to really get to know you and work with you these past 3 years since I took office, and being a city councilor in Fitchburg, you know, in living here for more than 20 years, had the chance to really get to know Fitchburg on an intimate level through my past service, and you know, part of the best aspect of taking office has been getting to know a new community too, and representing and serving Lunenburg, and really getting to work with you and your select board members, and talk a little bit about just the growth that you've seen in Lunenburg, and some of the accomplishments that you've really gotten to sink your teeth into over these past 7 years in your role.
So as you know, Lunenburg is one of the fastest growing communities in the state.
Yeah.
And we have seen growth even in my time there with projects such as the Lunenburg Central project on Lemieux-Shirley Road. It's a 400,000 square foot distribution center. We've seen projects come in for warehouse distribution of like a greenhouse distribution center. So those are potential dwelling projects that we're looking forward to, a real low impact on the services, which is a benefit to the town. But we're also seeing, you know, the need for housing and growth there. We've focused on building our staff for our police and fire departments because they were understaffed for so long. So we did long-term plan for staffing there. So those, I think, are positive changes that were incremental that we've been able to accomplish. We've also had some really large infrastructure projects like Summer Street,
Yes,
and Complete Streets, where we did the center of town, all the sidewalks, and create more accessibility to different places. The project I'm probably most proud of at the moment is 925 Mass Ave. It's an old gas station right in the center of town. It's some property I noticed when I was interviewing for the position. I came and toured the town, and it was one of the first things I saw when I entered the center.
Almost the gateway to the downtown, right?
Yes, and it was like, oh, that could be such, you could revitalize that location. It could, you know, just instead of being an eyesore, just be a gem of the community. And so it's been one of my goals since I started to see that to fruition, and we've come a long way. We worked with, started out with mass development, seeing any resources, got brownfields money to do the environmental site assessments, all 3 phases, to make sure we had no liability invested before taking the property, because the property was in tax title for many years. So the town could have taken the property for foreclosure, but we wanted to make sure we were in a good position to do so. So we went through all those steps, eventually took the property. That made us eligible for EPA funding, and they just completed the project to remove all the underground tanks and the fuel canopy, and now we're in the next phase of looking for funding from Mass Development. I applied for a real estate technical assistance grant for that project, so hopefully we hear this fall that we have funding for that, and that will get us to the next step of selling the property through a competitive process.
Oh, fantastic. And those are so many of those hurdles can be just such an arduous process to overcome, and you've really done some of the hardest work now of all the environmental and hazardous material mitigation, and it'll be exciting to be there at the groundbreaking. Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited for that day as well. I think the community is as well. We saw a lot of good support from the community that things were happening there, and that work was being done. It was finally turning a new leaf for that property.
And I think that speaks to maybe a broader theme too of, you know, that transition as Lunenburg's population just doubles almost every decade. And really just grows at some of the largest rates in the Commonwealth over the past not only 10 years, but really past 30 years. You're going from a small agricultural community 30, 40 years ago now to really a suburban community. And with that means just both a tremendous amount of opportunity, but also challenges when it comes to planning, right?
Yes.
And matching commercial and residential growth at the right pace, but also not losing the history of the agricultural roots of the community. Could you talk a little bit about how you balance those interests?
It is definitely a balance, and I think planning is a key part of that. The community is going through a master planning phase right now, so we just started that with a consultant. So that will be pivotal, I think, in Lunenburg, really identifying what their key resources are, where they want to see the community grow, housing, keeping that rural quality, because I think that's really important to residents and the farming community, and how we can keep that thriving at the same time as growing. And it still is a close-knit community. We have a lot of really dedicated volunteers in community. People come together for community events, which is really a special aspect of Lunenburg.
Lunenburg's a special place, and you've just done some amazing work to bring people together and to continue fostering that sense of community. With our last couple of minutes here, I guess I'm curious about what you're most excited about as we get into the future. You talked a little bit about one particular project. Are there other projects or anything on a broader theme that get you really excited about what the future of Lunenburg holds?
Besides 925 Mass Ave, I guess most excited and to see what the future brings for that corridor down there at Lemieux-Shirley Road, the commercial growth that can help the town with its tax base there, grow there. The master plan, the development of that, really creating a vision for the community of what they identify with and can hold on to as far as a core values and where the community wants to grow and see itself in the future. With that support and involvement of the community to be part of that, creating that vision, I think is really important. So, and it will help us for town government as well, for our departments to realize those values and, you know, see those core commitments as well as the community.
Well, I'm excited to take those next steps with you, and it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, and look forward to continue working with you.
Same here. Thank you for having me, and it really is a true pleasure working with you, Representative Kushmerek and Representative Scarsdale and Senator Cronin. You're all great partners for us in Lunenburg. I know I can reach out to you at any time, and you're very responsive, and I appreciate that, and the community appreciates that.
Oh, thanks for all your hard work. It's a wonderful team, both on the delegation side and the local side, and there's a lot in store, and look forward to working together.
Yes.
Heather Lemieux, thank you so much. Stay tuned. Coming next, we'll have Lisa Lane McCarty from Fitchburg State University's Police Academy. We'll be right back.
I remember when.
Fitchburg was the smallest town in the area, but by 1835, it had grown to be the largest town. By 1840 and 50, most Fitchburg residents had become abolitionists. Another early industry in Fitchburg that still continues today is scythe making. Women used to have to spin yarn and weave cloth themselves, but now it was being made in factories, cutting down and exporting its wood to build cities up and down the East Coast, and of course, for making paper. Starting in the 1800s, the population becomes much more diverse. Fitchburg Machine Works expanded widely.
After World War II, Main Street was lively.
And welcome back. Joining us in studio is Lisa Lane McCarty, the Fitchburg State University Police Academy Director. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Now, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and in your role as director, but also a little bit what preceded your experience now?
Sure. So I'm the daughter of a law enforcement officer, so my dad was a police lieutenant in Pepperell. So I grew up in the environment and in the culture, and I just found it interesting and sort of fascinating. So I went to school for criminal justice, didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be a police officer because that's a really hard job. I saw that firsthand. So I ended up going into victim advocacy. So I worked with victims of crime in the Middlesex DA's office, for Leominster Police. I went to the Department of Transitional Assistance, Department of Youth Services. I've worked in every state agency there is. And during that time, I ended up working, being an instructor at the Boylston Police Academy, teaching on victims' rights and victimization. because obviously that's a passion
So
of mine.
important, yeah.
Yes, and I just loved being in the police academy environment. I just felt like that was a really good place for me to be. So I ended up working for the Municipal Police Training Committee at the Boylston Academy full time. I got a job there training, helping to run training for veteran police officers. And then this job came up at Fitchburg State University, this new innovative program, and the job came up for Academy Director. And I thought, you know, working with victims, I've worked with a lot of young victims, children and adolescents,
Sure.
and I love working with young people. So it sort of married my two passions into one.
That's amazing. You talked a little bit about just enjoying the experience, but also the ecosystem of the Academy. Talk a little bit about, in your role, what this entails, because this truly is an innovative program, first of its kind in the entire nation, right, of partnering an academy with a public university.
Yes.
Tell folks at home a little bit about this, because they may not have ever heard about this, the residents of Fitchburg and Lunenburg.
No, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I mean, we've come a long way. I've been there for 6.5 years now as
Sure.
the director. So we've come a long way. We have a long way to go, but it is the first of its kind in the country to marry education and police training all at the same time. So, and I do have to give a shout out to retired Chief Bob Demore. He was the one that brought this idea to the school. And they were so receptive and innovative in saying, let's do this. So it is different. And I was working at Boylston Academy when this job came up, as I said, and there was a lot of cynics, and I speak openly about this, saying this model's too offbeat, it's not gonna work. And I had some reservations about it. So, you know, so essentially what we do is we bring in freshmen as 18-year-olds into this police program. And we are in a memorandum of agreement with the Municipal Police Training Committee, MPTC, saying that we will run this program similar to a police academy. So our 18-year-olds come in essentially as recruits. You know, obviously very much lower level at this point, but they wear uniforms and they're exposed to drill instructors, and you know, they write to-froms. And so what we're trying to do is, in those 4 years, sort of vet them out as what's their character like, but also provide them with extras. So extra training, things they may not get in the academy, extra education, you know, and I can talk about the curriculum, you know, in a little bit, but we're trying to, you know, put officers out on the street that are really in tune to the communities that they're going in to serve. You know, they're not a part, meaning outside of a community, they're a part of a community, and what does that mean for them? So we've designed the curriculum and the program sort of around that philosophy.
And they spend 4 years embedded in that community, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So what an incredible opportunity to really mold those young minds of these incredible men and women who know at 18 years old that they want to serve their communities and the Commonwealth.
No, absolutely.
Well, you know, I think there's been a lot of discussion about policing and where the future and direction of policing go, and really about how policing is calibrated to exactly what you've just described, who the community is and what the community needs are, and better understanding the role of policing in a community. And I really think your academy, and I know your academy, is exactly what not only policing needs, but it's exactly what our communities need, is this holistic approach to policing. And your students get exposed to this this ecosystem and not only just a criminal justice education, but spend time working hand in hand with human services and sociology and psychology majors and professors, and really get an understanding for the other fields and professions that will intersect with them throughout their entire career.
And I think that's one of the positives of this program, and sort of what makes it so innovative, is we do require that they take human services classes, and one of those human services classes requires them to do an internship somewhere in social services, not at a police department. It could be nonprofit, it could be, you know, Community Health Link or Mock or a soup kitchen, or, you know, we want them to be sort of very well aware of the struggles that an average citizen might go through, you know, and things that we see quite often now, you know, mental illness, you know, substance abuse and addiction, homelessness, poverty, you know, the things that people in a community will suffer from. And police officers are problem solvers, and they see people in crisis. And my passion was working with victims, so what I wanted to do is make sure that the officers that we put out there sort of understand what people are going through. You know, and police officers, a very small percentage of their time is spent enforcing laws. We call them law enforcement, but that's a tiny percentage of what they do. They, you know, problem solve, and they resolve conflict, and they meet people in need, and they help them. So we designed the curriculum to make sure that they understood that, You know, there's things going on with people that you're not just walking in and necessarily applying the law. There's a time that you need to be tactical, and there's a time that you need to be tactful.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Well said. And for many of these students, they'll also go on to a master's degree. Is that correct?
So, yeah, so this is called a 4+1 program. So 4 years they get an undergraduate degree in criminal justice. So they graduate on a Saturday in May. They have a commencement, and I'm kind enough to give them a day off. And then Monday they start the academy on campus. And that Monday begins their 1 year, their plus year of their graduate degree. So the academy is worth 12 credits towards their graduate degree, which is 36 total credits. So that's unique as well. Traditional academies don't offer graduate credits or any college credits, actually.
And then that's a little bit of a culture shock that next day after graduate. They go from the classroom to the fields and truly an academy with drill instructors and police instructors, right?
And you've been coming out to PT with us, which I appreciate.
I have, and dare I say it's grueling. You know, I typically work out about 4 or 5 times a week, and never have I been put through this kind of strain. And it's been humbling for me to see what at 21 and 22 these young men and women go through in order to pursue their passion of policing. And some don't make it, right?
No.
And but the ones who do, it's really incredible just to see the physical and emotional transformation. You know, halfway through this recruitment class, can already see with these young recruits and cadets.
I think that's what's most exciting for me, just personally and professionally. And you, let me just say, you hold your own with that. You're better than a lot of the 22-year-olds. You know, you're, like I said, you're a good role model for them to aspire to. You know, we want them to live a life of fitness, not just an academy of fitness. But what I love, and you're going to be able to see it, which is why I appreciate so much you taking the time to come out the beginning. I mean, you came to day 1 of PT, and you come consistently. Is you're going to see them change, not only physically, but they make such great strides in the 17 weeks in the academy. Everything we do has a training purpose. And you've come to our graduation, so you're gonna have more of an understanding of where they started from, because it is amazing to watch the transformation of these young men and women from college students, seniors in college, to police officers in 17 weeks.
And by September 20th, they'll be likely on the streets in a cruiser in their municipality, whoever is, most of whom have already been hired by municipal police departments. So it's really incredible to think about, you know, what 3-4 months does to these individuals, and that's really a credit to the work that you've done.
Yeah, thank you.
What is it that continues to inspire you to keep doing it? Because these are long years, each one of them, I'm sure. Yeah.
So what's interesting now that this is our 6th academy class that's in, which is amazing to me. What inspires me, honestly, is these young people. You know, first of all, the fact that they come into a profession that, you know, it's not really well respected right now. There's some mistrust between the community and the police that we're working on, and we're trying to do a really good job with that. But this is a tough time, a tough climate to become a police officer. And I watch these kids, and I say kids and I shouldn't, these young people, to me they're kids, but their resolve does not waver. They come in at 18 years old. And, you know, just as a for instance, this class that's currently in the 6th ROC started is 55. There was 55 freshmen, there's 11 left. So that speaks volumes of their commitment. It's not an easy program. And to watch them graduate, you've been to graduation, so you know I cry at everyone. I can't help it. I'm just so proud to watch them in the front row in their uniforms, taking the oath of honor, because they've earned it. And then I get to watch them out in their communities doing great things. And I have to be honest, and I'm not just saying this, but chiefs call me all the time to tell me things about what my recruits are doing. You know, one of my recruits has gotten 3 commendations from his chief for saving lives already. He's only been on less than a year.
That's amazing.
You know, I had an assistant district attorney reach out to me and tell me that one of my recruits gave the best OUI testimony he's ever seen. Wow. You know, Chief Martineau tells me all the time that our recruits are such good report writers, like very well written, very well spoken. So it's those, you know, I watch these 18-year-olds, and then I get to watch them become these adults and become these police officers who are doing amazing work in their communities, which was always my hope for them. That's
incredible. And, you know, I talked to Fitchburg's police chief, Ernie Martineau, and he talks often just about how this is the exact role model for the entire Commonwealth. And he wishes every state university had a program just like this because of the incredible work you're doing. And I know he's always saying I hire every one of these kids if I could. So I think that's a testament to the work you've done.
And he's been a huge support ever since I got here. And he has 4 of our recruits, former recruits, and they're all just doing amazing.
That's what it takes, right? It takes that local collaboration with your local police on the ground, so that not only are these students exposed to the law enforcement profession throughout their 4 years, but they actually know what it's going to look like, and so that if they have reservations, and you spoke to that 55 down to 11, if they have reservations, you want them to know it up front.
Absolutely.
There's nothing worse than someone getting into a job in a profession realizing, I made a terrible mistake, I don't like what I'm doing. They actually have the opportunity to really see the impact at a ground level.
No, absolutely. I mean, and so there is a high attrition rate, and I'm happy about that. That's nothing that I'm concerned with, because this job is not for everyone.
Right.
And you know, some of the kids that we lose, they have to follow MPTC rules and guidelines, so they can be dismissed for any reason during the 4 years. But then there's some that just decide this isn't for me, and I say no harm, no foul.
That's right.
They go right into traditional CJ. They graduate with a CJ degree. There's nothing wrong with that, and they go and they do other things. You know, a lot of them will go into social services because they do take human services classes and sociology classes, and they decide, I want to do my work on that side of it, which is, so it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Yes. Everybody
wins there. You know, and I know recently, because of the work that you've already done, as well as the work that you're doing as Academy Director, you were just recently recognized by the Mass Association of Women in Law Enforcement. Talk a little bit about what that meant to you.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. That was a huge honor for me for many reasons. First of all, because women in law enforcement represent under 12%,
wow.
And only 3% of women in law enforcement are leaders. And obviously I'm a civilian, but I sort of count myself in those numbers. I'm on the periphery.
Absolutely.
And to be honored by that organization of so many women that are, I have a couple role models. One's the director in Plymouth at the Academy, and one is Chief Cara Rossi in Ashland. Two women that I really look up to and admire. And they were there that day. I got to see them. But more so about that award was that I was nominated by a colleague at Fitchburg State, Dr. David Weiss, which was an honor. And then when I got to the awards, they told me that I actually got 2 nominations. And the second nomination was from a mother of a former recruit. And
that's incredible.
That made me, and she did reach out after this mom and said, you know, I just wanted to let you know, and they didn't tell me that it was her. I knew that Dr. Weiss had. But I have a close relationship with some of the families of these recruits because I've had them for so long and I get to meet them. And that is special to me too, that a mom thought enough of me and what I did for her son that she nominated me for that.
Well, it's so incredibly well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, as a state representative for Fitchburg and Lunenburg, it's just incredible to see the work that you've done in our community, and I'm so proud, and I boast about your academy and your program to the representatives across the Commonwealth and to my other state university peers about the work that you're doing. So just such a pleasure to have you on the show to talk about the program, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you so much for your support. I mean,
Absolutely.
You've been a huge supporter of this program and of the university as well, so I appreciate that.
Of course. Lisa Lane McCarty, thank you so much for coming on the show. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in as always. Look forward to having you tune in September, where we'll have Mayor DiNatale of the city of Fitchburg come on the show and talk a little bit about what he has in store for the city. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to FATV for hosting us. We'll see you next month.